upper level, 2 on the intermediate level, and 1 on the lower level. These exits are identified by the illuminated exit sign above each door. At this time, please locate the emergency exit nearest you and use this exit in a likely event of an emergency. The meeting will begin shortly. Please silence your phones. Thank you.
The following is a production of Cary TV, the Town of Cary's government access channel.
Call the April 28th Cary Town Council meeting to order. And as you can tell, Mayor Weinbrecht is not with us this evening. Him and his wife are celebrating a milestone anniversary, so you're stuck with me tonight. At this point, I will recognize Councilmember Robinson for our ceremonial opening.
Great, thank you so much. I just want to say welcome to the Cary 101 class. We're glad to have you, and we're really thankful that you're interested in the business of our town. So thank you very much. And it's nice to see all the other faces here, especially some of our super volunteers and stakeholders. So thank you. Please join me in pledging allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, the applicant for 21 REZ 21 Fenton Mixed Use Development Amendment has requested to waive the one-year waiting period for that item has been requested to be removed from the agenda. So can I get a motion to amend or approve the amended agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, now we are at our recognitions, report, and presentation portion of our meeting. And before we proceed with the presentation of the agenda, I wanted to recognize some special guests in the audience this evening, as Ms. Robinson already did. But I would like to ask that all the participants of Cary 101, all these students, please stand up and be recognized. As Ms. Robinson so eloquently mentioned earlier, we appreciate your involvement and participation in the town and learning more about your town, and look forward to seeing you around town and around Town Hall for years to come. So thank you. At this point, we move to recognitions, reports, and presentations. And our first presentation is proclamation for the Earth Day proclamation presented by Councilmember Jack Smith. And I will turn it over to Mr. Smith for his remarks at the podium and invite North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality Secretary Elizabeth Beiser to join him.
What a shorter walk. Nice to meet you. So glad to have you here. Thank you.
It's hard to keep up with this stupid thing.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem France. It's truly an honor to be here today with North Carolina Environmental Quality Secretary, Ms. Elizabeth Beiser. And she's here because we're celebrating Cary's Earth Day. And before reading the proclamation, I'd like to share a little bit about your background. The Secretary has served in this capacity since June of 2021, when she was appointed by Governor Roy Cooper. And her agency is committed to the protection of air, land, and water at our state and our state's commitment to the transition to a clean energy future. And it's been an honor to work with Secretary Beiser as her agency partnered with the town on our food waste drop-off, which I think we're going to hear more of later, right? So please help me in welcoming Secretary Beiser. So if you'll bear with me for a minute, we're going to read the proclamation, and then I'll turn it over to you. So designating April 30th, 2022 as Cary Earth Day 2022, whereas Cary is committed to preserving and protecting the environment and is excited to celebrate that many programs and initiatives that support that commitment this Earth Day at our Spring Days Arts and Crafts Festival in Bond Park. And whereas Cary's Earth Day celebration is held in conjunction with our Spring Days Arts and Crafts Festival, and we are proud to provide a variety of food waste reduction opportunities for vendors and festival goers to have their food scraps composted. And whereas we are grateful for our community partners and the state for supporting our waste reduction strategies that have a regional environmental benefit, and launched a pilot food waste drop-off service as part of the Department of Environmental Quality Community Waste Reduction and Recycling Grant Programs. A lot of big words. Whereas Cary continues to support ecosystem resiliency and food security by annually participating in the National Wildlife Federation's Mayor's Monarch Pledge that supports pollinators, expanding Good Hope Farms farmer training and plot rentals, and preserving sensitive wetlands. And whereas Cary is a Department of Energy Soul Smart program, we are now a gold community, and we are proudly leader in renewable energy initiatives with our expanding green fleet, solar energy facility upgrades, and residential executive programs, education programs. And whereas our citizens' participation in outreach programs, such as our Spruce, the community gardens, and My Tree, Our Tree, all help keep Cary a leader in environmental stewardship. Now, therefore, I, Jack Smith, on behalf of Mayor Weinbrecht and the rest of our town council, do hereby proclaim April 30th, 2022 as Cary Earth Day 2022, and I encourage everyone to join us at our celebration at Bond Park this Saturday. This is proclaimed the 28th day of April 2022. And Secretary Beiser, we are so proud to present you with that proclamation. Thank you for coming, and it's all yours.
Well, thank you, Councilman Smith, and thank you to the town of Cary and to the council. I am honored to accept this proclamation. You know, Earth Day is a really big deal at the Department of Environmental Quality. It's a day to celebrate and recognize the importance of preserving and protecting our natural resources. Having clean air, land, and water is foundational to public health, to economic competitiveness, and to just our general well-being. And it's not just for today's benefits, it's also to make sure that we're leaving a legacy behind that we can be really proud of for future generations. And I know that the town of Cary shares those values. Councilman Smith, thank you for sharing about the work of the Environmental Advisory Board and those Earth Day activities. My family and I have lived in the town of Cary for 15 years, and these are exactly the types of things that we love about living in Cary. Just this morning, I had a chance to visit your new food waste composting pilot, which we are very proud to partner with you on. We are just excited to see the efforts that Cary's taken to be a leader in this area. The EPA estimates that 30 to 40% of all of the food supply ends up in landfills. Wow. And pilot programs just like this can help us reduce that amount. It's not just a waste problem, it's also a climate problem. So approximately 20% of total US methane emissions come from landfills. So addressing food waste helps us move closer to Governor Cooper's carbon reduction goals, and it also helps us find ways to redirect food that otherwise might be wasted to folks who need it the most. So I'm excited to see Cary stepping up with initiatives like the food waste composting pilot program, and I really hope to see other cities follow your lead too. So thank you again for the proclamation, for all that you're doing on behalf of the environment, and thank you for having me here this evening.
Ms. Beiser, thank you so much for being here this evening and for all the work that you do, not only for our region, but for the state of North Carolina. And please send our thanks and appreciation also back to you and your staff as well. We really appreciate all of you. All right, our next presentation, we'll recognize Ms. Councilmember Bush for Bike Month recognition.
It's Bike Month. So if you didn't know, May is National Bike Month and June 4th is National Trails Day. We see this time of year as a great opportunity to share the love of cycling, our commitment to cycling in the town, also to encourage riding. It goes perfectly with the Earth Day activities, because if you're on your bike, you're hopefully not in your car and putting additional carbon out into our air. What we aim to do in May is to educate and to share our love of how to ride safely in the town of Cary. We have more than 200 miles of on-road bike facilities and greenways, 90 miles of that, of course, as you all have heard us talk about so eloquently, is the Greenway Network, which are perfect for beginner bike riders as well as more advanced bike riders. And we are recognized as a bike-friendly community by the League of American Cyclists. And we've been recognized since the year 2003. So what's going on this month and kind of why should you care? Well, there's a couple of new things going on. The first one is a social challenge called Love to Ride. You can get your app out, create a group, and use the Love to Ride app and download that now. I see all the Cary 101 people starting to download it. That encourages you to be safe and to log your miles. And there'll be prizes for how many miles that you've ridden safely. And it really kickstarts and gets people more interested in riding their bike and realizing that it's pretty easy. Once you start earning points, we'll be talking more as the month progresses about, cool Town of Cary swag you can get, and you can show your love of Cary and your love of cycling. We also have a bike rental pilot going on. If you don't have a bike, we've got a solution. We have a bike rental pilot that will be at Bond Park, and you can rent your bike there and jump on one of the cool trails if you want. You can jump on right at Bond Park, and did you know you can go all the way to the American Tobacco Trail on a greenway, never get off? Yay! Go all the way and then ride up and down the American Tobacco Trail. We'll also be announcing some great grants that we recently are receiving about helmets. One of the things that you really need to be careful of and to be safe is to make sure that your kids and you wear a helmet. And so that can sometimes be an impediment and an equity issue for some people. So we'll be giving away throughout the year about 100 bike helmets. And as I kind of wind this up, we have Bike and Roll School Day, which is May 4th. So we suggest that parents work with us or work with their schools. They can have a nice, safe ride. There'll be lots of markings and extra police out to make sure that kids have a safe ride to school that day. And then also, if you're just noticing, you might have noticed that there's about 3 or 4 roads that have some separated bike lanes and some what are called buffered bike lanes. And what those look like are little pills, I guess, the shape of pills, kind of crooked on the road, right, Rob? Kind of crooked on the road. And if you're driving on there, please, as you're driving, first off, don't be distracted, but don't go over those bumps, because it'll be like on the highway when you go a little too far. None of us have done that where it goes bum, 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 bum.
How was that?
Yeah, I'll do that again later. And that actually protects the cyclists and makes them feel more safe, right? And I think hopefully with that, we'll see more and more people ride on the road in those protected and buffered bike lanes. Those right now, it's on Hortons Creek. You'll see some Sears Farm. The Fenton will have some of those. You'll also see some, hopefully, very aware green paint that'll soon be making its way onto some of our stripes on bike lanes as well, to help our drivers and cyclists know where it's safe for them to ride. So hopefully I will see some of you out on the roads on your bike. I'll be looking for staff to start logging their love to ride, and maybe Sean will join us as well.
Maybe.
Maybe. So, thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Bush. That was great. And our third item is the Preservation Month recognition. And at this point, I will turn it over to Councilmember Ed Urha for his remarks.
Thank you. Apparently, May is a very busy month.
Apparently.
It is Historic Preservation Month in Cary, which coincides with National Preservation Month around the country. So how are we going to celebrate? Well, throughout the month of May, there'll be various social media posts all about historic preservation. Hopefully you'll find them interesting, and please keep your eye open for them. They'll be coming on sporadically through the town's social media channels. And this Saturday, the Historic Preservation Commission is going to have a booth at Spring Days. Firstly, I hope you all come to Spring Days at Bond Park this Saturday. And you can visit the Historic Preservation Commission booth, learn a little bit about it. And they just tell me that there's a chance you could win a prize. So I'm going to be there, see what happens. And on May 19th, there will be a preservation panel discussion at the Page Walker with representatives from the State Historic Preservation Office, Preservation North Carolina, and others. They'll be talking about the adaptive reuse of historic structures and the role that historic preservation can play in economic development. Now, historic preservation usually is known for the preservation of old buildings, is it not? But it can also pertain to other items, such as the preservation of film. I said that because the town staff has recently discovered a bunch of reels of film from our Cary Centennial. Now, we just celebrated the sesquicentennial last year, right? This is from the Centennial, 1971. Do any of you remember home movies your parents used to show you when you, that's what this is. It's home movie quality. But it was redone digitally by our staff. And I'm told that portion of the video is available starting tonight. Now, don't all turn off the council meeting. Go to the video. But it's available starting tonight on our Cary YouTube channel. And it's really interesting. I got to preview some of it a few weeks ago. It's really well done. You'll be seeing a lot of the Centennial Parade, which has a lot of fire trucks. And speaking of fire trucks, the Cary Fire Department will be celebrating its 100th anniversary in June of this year. And there'll be a bunch of events to celebrate that. So we have historic preservation in May and the fire company in June. And I really would like to thank our town staff. Matthew Champagne from our town staff has taken this film project under his wing and has done an amazing job. And Jillian White, our historic preservation planner, she's planned all the events for Preservation Month and deserves our thanks. And so does the Historic Preservation Commission for their continued volunteer work and for their passion about Cary's history and Cary's future. So watch out for your social media and tune in that YouTube channel after the council meeting's over. Don?
Thank you, Mr. Muir. I look forward to watching that. That sounds interesting.
Yeah.
Very cool. Our next agenda item is Public Speaks Out. We've included instructions for speaking at this forum on the printed agenda. If you would like to speak, please take a seat in the rows to my right, they're over here, that are shown as reserved, and follow the instructions on the agenda. Public Speaks Out speakers have up to 3 minutes each for their comments, and speakers may speak on any topic as long as it's not a public hearing. The 3-minute time limit will be enforced, not to be rude, but to be fair to all speakers. There is a timer at the podium up here to help you adhere to the 3-minute limit. When you've reached 30 seconds left, much like a traffic light, the green light will turn to yellow, and when your time is up, a flashing red light will appear. To help have an efficient Public Speaks Out time, we ask that groups have a spokesperson to speak on their behalf to reduce repetitive comments. Also, if you'd like to speak next after the person at the podium, please stand behind the clerk towards the stairs right over here, and then wait for your turn. It also signals to me that there are additional speakers waiting to be heard. I thank everyone in the audience for respecting that this is a business meeting. Please do not applaud, make remarks from your seat, or anything else that might distract from this meeting. And I will now open it up to Public Speaks Out for anyone who wants to speak. And at this time, the first speaker may approach the podium. Don't everybody come at once. All right, going, gone. I will close Public Speaks Out. And we will move on to the consent agenda. We're now at the consent agenda portion of tonight's meeting. For the benefit of the people watching our meeting on TV, I will take a moment to review our consent agenda items, and please know that one vote approves all of these consent agenda items. Interlocal agreement for Phase 6 of the Triangle Water Supply Monitoring Project, Act 22 Town Code and Land Development Ordinance Amendments, technical amendments, adjustment to adopted meeting schedules, and would anybody like to pull anything from consent?
No.
Nope.
All right, with that, I will take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. All right, at this point, we are now at public hearings, and the same rules that apply for Public Speaks Out apply to public hearings, except that now you get 5 minutes instead of 3. And the first public hearing is item 22 REZ05, number 5 rezoning West Chatham and Old Apex Road. Associate Planning Director Deborah Grannon will introduce the item, and council will not take action on this rezoning tonight, but it will be referred to our Planning and Zoning Board. The item will return to council at a future meeting for action. So, Ms. Grannon.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Good evening, council. For your consideration is a request to rezone property located at 602 West Chatham Street and 523 Old Apex Road on 2 acres. Subject property is located between Old Apex Road and West Chatham Street, just west of the Old Apex roundabout. It's the site of a former Citgo station. The building has been removed. The canopy is still in place. And also the site of the European Automotive Repair Facility, a metal building that was constructed in 1985. The property is located in the Business Improvement District of downtown, an opportunity for redevelopment and public-private partnerships. This is the location of the site to the west. The existing zoning on the subject property is Town Center Mixed Use District. This is a district that offers a wide range of opportunities for residential and non-residential development. The applicant is proposing Town Center HMXD. Now, I mentioned earlier that this was an irregular shaped property sandwiched between 2 streets. It's got a lot of road frontage. You can see the irregular shape of the property. So this is a parcel of land that would really benefit from a more vertical design rather than a horizontal design. And to that end, the applicant recognizes that the HMXD district could give them 20 additional feet of height, 65 feet, rather than the 45 feet that they're capped at today. So as I mentioned, there's lots of development opportunities that are identical between these 2 districts. These are just a few of the examples: multifamily, townhouses, life care community, retail sales and service, office, hotel or motel. There's over 50 different uses that would be allowed in both districts. What you'll notice is not listed here is car wash, vehicle filling station, towing, and vehicle storage. Those could potentially be allowed if the use was established prior to July 1st, 2003, but if the use is discontinued for 6 months or more, it cannot be reestablished. And one of the differences between the 2 districts is there's some uses that are allowed today in MXD, like a veterinary hospital, a community club, lodge, or hall. Those would not be allowed in the HMXD district. So even though the height is taller, so more intensity in terms of the form, the uses are actually more restrictive in HMXD. So here's a comparison to the density and dimensional standards. Again, a lot of similarities. The gross density is the same. No difference in the density for residential dwelling units. Lot sizes, no requirements, same in both districts. Roadway setbacks, 0 for both districts. Same with the rear yard and side yard setbacks. Where we see the difference, as I mentioned, is with the building height, 45 feet in the existing zoning district, 65 feet with the rezoning proposed to the HMXD. And there's also then a slight difference between the parking standards. Minimum parking requirements under the current zoning, 1 dwelling unit per acre, or 1 parking space per dwelling unit, plus an additional 0.5 parking spaces for each additional bedroom, and then 1 space per 300 square feet of non-residential use. That's with the current zoning. The HMXD is much less restrictive. There's no minimum for non-residential use and no requirement for additional parking spaces if there's additional bedrooms. Our GIS maps indicate that there is a stream buffer on the subject property, and field determination of that would be required at the time of development plan review. Our Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources Master Plan identifies a future street side trail located on the south side of West Chatham Street. What's not shown on this map is also that there is a town project on the north side of Old Apex Road, and that's a sidewalk improvement. The properties between Old Apex Road and West Chatham Street, a 3-lane thoroughfare. And there is an existing Go Cary bus route located along West Chatham Street, Go Cary route number 4. There's an existing bus stop located on the subject property near the roundabout, and that would be required to be upgraded in the event a development plan comes forward. With the exception of 1 power pole on the property, there's no overhead power lines. Our LDO does require power lines to be buried at the time of a development plan, and that will need to be evaluated with Duke Power and staff at the time of development plan review. So staff has done a preliminary analysis of this request. It is a general use zoning district. Still, there's a number of policies in the Imagine Cary Community Plan that would apply. The work chapter, this would be an opportunity to ensure economic growth and vitality of downtown. The shape chapter, this would focus more intense development in a strategic location. There's the potential, if residential multifamily or townhomes are proposed here, to meet policies in the live chapter, putting residential development on an infill or a redevelopment site. And then I mentioned that vertical design opportunity that could help recognize some of the policies in the serve chapter, potentially improving air quality. The property is located in downtown, as indicated on the growth framework map. And then there are special policies associated with this special planning area, fostering development that's connected and cohesive to the subareas in downtown, encouraging reinvestment and redevelopment, and supporting a range of uses. So I mentioned subareas. This is one of the subareas of downtown, the West Chatham Gateway. The West Chatham Gateway is also referred to as a residential gateway, an opportunity for small-scale housing and commercial. And there's a vision for this area, for the West Chatham Gateway, small-scale housing, commercial uses, building heights predominantly 2 to 3 stories, but the opportunity to go higher depending on the context, and the opportunity for cohesive redevelopment and development patterns in this area. And as you know, there's a lot of new development going on in downtown. So property owners within 800 feet of the subject property were notified by mail, which exceeds both the state and the LDO requirements. We posted the property with a public hearing sign and put information about the public hearing on the town website. And staff facilitated a virtual neighborhood meeting on March 9th. We had 17 attendees in addition to the applicant and their representatives. They had questions regarding what the specific uses were, how stormwater management would be executed on the site. There were concerns about traffic and pedestrian safety. And we did observe that there was opposition as well as support. It was pretty balanced during the meeting that we heard both sides. Since this neighborhood meeting, we had 3 additional emails. One citizen wanted to understand the process to share comments. We had 2 citizens also share concerns about traffic impacts and cut-through traffic. And there was a citizen who was concerned about the changing character town-wide, especially in downtown Cary. So this concludes staff's presentation. The applicant's representative, Jamie Schwadler with Parker Poe, is here to describe the applicant's perspective on this. Then following her comments and the public hearing, I will be available for your questions.
Thank you, Ms. Grannon. Ms. Schwadler?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem and members of council. I'm Jamie Schwadler with Parker Poe, 301 Fayetteville Street. I'm here on behalf of McKeenan Properties, and I'm joined tonight by Kyle Greer and Wes Cook from McKeenan, and Kevin Dean with Kimley Horn, our traffic engineer, who is available for questions. This request brings forth redevelopment in the West Chatham Gateway, an area of downtown that the Cary Community Plan envisions for redevelopment and revitalization. The town's investment in the park and this location has brought renewed interest in downtown, and we've seen a surge of new residents come to the downtown area, investing in its residential lots to enjoy the great restaurants and amenities it has in this walkable area. That surge has included the west end of downtown from a single-family lot perspective, but it's lacking in apartments and in retail. The McKeenan Brewery concept immediately north of this site is under development plan review and will provide some of that needed retail. But this case provides the first opportunity for a rezoning that adds both ground floor commercial and a potential for multifamily to transform what's currently an underutilized property, a vacant, abandoned gas station, into a new amenity for the West Chatham Gateway. Based on the size and the unusual shape of the site, we've modeled the traffic study at 200 multifamily units and up to 10,000 square feet of ground floor retail. And that's based on the assumption that there will be a wrapped parking deck to support that amount of residential use here and the ground floor retail. And then 65 foot in height is thus important to achieve that level of 200 multifamily units, because we're basically replacing those ground floor units with the ability to do some commercial mixed use at the bottom of the building. We appreciate staff help to get to this point, and we'll limit our remarks to the Cary Community Plan policies that were cited, that were most important in the staff report, as well as the additional benefits of this request. As Deborah noted in the SHAPE chapter, Policy 5, this area is encouraged for reinvestment and revitalization in a wide range of uses for this area of the downtown special planning area. This focuses on unique types of lots such as this that are ripe for redevelopment and can serve as a focal point in the new gateway. The chapter notes that there can be above 3 stories of redevelopment, and that 65 feet is appropriate here because we have the intersection of 2 major roadways, because we have this transition from single lots in this area and transition between the commercial to the north. It's also supported by Work Chapter 7 and Shop Chapter, the Shop Chapter Policy 2, both of which contemplate focusing growth and more intense use in this area of downtown. Further, this case is reasonable in the public interest for 3 reasons. As the staff report notes, the HMXD district is what has been consistently applied in the downtown area, and its consistent pattern and continuation of that growth. And second, the LDO contains sufficient protections at development plan that will not only upgrade the stormwater and sewer, that will replace some of the surface parking lots with increased tree canopy by replanting trees, increasing the environmental quality by upgrading the stormwater and infrastructure adjacent to a stream, and then, of course, implementing the traffic recommendations that would apply at development plan. And finally, we're aware of the town's pedestrian and infrastructure needs in this area, and we do anticipate discussing a potential development agreement at development plan to work with the town to accommodate those requests. All of these serve to protect the town and its interest in mitigating the impacts of this development, despite the fact that this is not a conditional use. And so we believe that it's reasonable in the public interest to provide this request here tonight. In sum, the site is ideal to support a denser development to complement the adjacent brewery project to the north, and will further revitalize the west end of downtown Cary. It's thus consistent with the Imagine Cary plan and can be a strong anchor for this district, and we're happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Ms. Schweiler. Stick around, there might be questions.
Thank you.
All right. At this point, I will call on the clerk to summarize any written comments we may have received.
We have received 3 written comments total, 2 comments that express concerns about the following topics: traffic, speeding, and parking. Those comments ask for more information regarding how these issues will be addressed. They were submitted by Jackie Barbetta Shepherd and Katie Heil. Our last written comment received requested council to deny the rezoning as they believe it is not consistent with the Cary Community Plan and expressed concerns about increased building height. This comment was submitted by Nick Boriso. No call-in speakers nor registered speakers.
Thank you. All right. At this point, I will open up the public hearing for 22 REZ 05, number 5, rezoning West Chatham and Old Apex, and call on the first speaker to come forward, please. Wow, you're making this a really easy meeting for me. All right, seeing no one, I will close the public hearing and open it up to council members for questions or comments. Ms. Robinson?
I have questions. So this is for Deborah. Deborah, the different items that were identified in the traffic study as potential items that could be offered by the applicant, none of them are being offered. And I was trying to figure out, like, is staff good with that? Like, they're like, because there's language there about not recommending at least one of those driveways because of making it more difficult for pedestrian movements.
So what happens without zoning conditions is then it requires much more collaboration at the time of development plan review. We have to really work together with the applicant. They mentioned the potential of an agreement with the town. So those are some of the things we'd have to address during development plan review. It just doesn't give us that guarantee that certain conditions are going to be in place. But, you know, we both would want to work together to make this safe, so.
How often do we have rezonings that are not conditional use? Because it seems like it's extremely rare.
We've had them a lot in town center. Years ago, most of town center was all just general zoning districts. In 2003, when we adopted the new land development ordinance, we stopped doing conditional use zoning districts in town center. It was all just straight rezoning. And recently, we started to do it again. We started to see the conditional uses coming in. And we were, when this was submitted, a little surprised. I said to Mrs. Schwedler, "Where's your zoning conditions?" And she said, "We'd like to focus on how close these two districts are to each other." And the fact that the uses are almost identical. There's over 50 different uses that could be the same in both districts. The density is the same. So they really wanted to drive home the fact that it's an odd-shaped parcel and that the big reason for the ask is the difference in the height.
Are there any uses that are permitted in the high-density mixed use that we should be concerned about that are on that list that have not been called out? I mean, every so often you have something that slips by.
Yeah, I have a list that I can share with you that shows just a couple of uses that would potentially be allowed. Let me see here. So I wouldn't call it a concern. Manufacturing light is allowed in both, but in town center MXD, currently it would require a special use, and it would be allowed by right in HMXD. The only other categories are detached dwelling would require a special use permit in HMXD, or if you had some sort of a, detached multifamily, that would be allowed with a special use. So as I mentioned earlier, the uses are much more intense under the current zoning designation.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. So the first one is that this, there are no conditions currently on this case, is that correct?
That's correct. Today it's a general zoning district, and they're asking to keep it a general zoning district with no new conditions.
So as great as this is, and full transparency, I live within the 800 feet, and I was on the list of people, but I did not attend the neighborhood meeting, but it is very close to me, and I like it. I don't want anyone to think that I'm, not in my backyard. And I think there's an opportunity to make it better. So I'll just give my feedback now so that the applicant has it. We're already having challenges with stormwater in the downtown area, and we're doing our own projects to improve stormwater. I think this is an opportunity, even though it's a 100-year stormwater. I would love to see a condition and the applicant to consider 500-year flood. We're already having 500-year floods every year. I would love to see this developer help us solve the stormwater problem that we already have downtown. The other sorts of things I'd be interested in is affordable housing. It's an important problem. We've seen other developers make this a public-private partnership and help us with this problem. I'd love to see the developer start to look at how they might be able to partner with us there. And then finally, because there are no other conditions, I do see some additional trees, which is great because it's there's nothing there right now, really. I'd love to see some environmental conditions added. EV chargers in this structured parking. We have a list now, right, on our website. I'd love to see this be even better. And we have nothing right now, but I think as we see, things can always get better by the time they come back to us.
Thank you, Ms. Bush. Mr. Yearhouse?
No questions, but just two comments.
Please.
One is, I agree with you with the environmental aspect of this. I would like to see the SERV chapter be a little more supported, a little more robust conditions or whatnot for that. But the other thing is, I just need to be more comfortable with pedestrian accessibility. It's kind of a funky area with the traffic circle, and how are people going to get to it, to the retail, back and forth? And I think, was it Jamie, you said that we're working on a developer agreement that might handle some of the pedestrian aspects? If that's the case, that would be great.
Thank you, Councilmember Yearhouse. We are not working on it yet, but that's our intention at development plan when we have more specific plans together. So we'll take that into consideration.
Very good. No, I like to see that. That and some more environmental oomph.
Got it.
SERV Chapter 8.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Lou?
Good with the project. I agree with all the comments Ms. Bush and Ms. Earhart raised, and
Mr. Stiegel, did you?
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate that we plan on bringing back a development agreement that can really facilitate a lot of this. But I want to set the council's expectations. While we can make projects better through this process, and almost uniformly we do, this is a very difficult site to develop.
Yes.
And so we're going to, not only the staff, but the council also need to moderate its expectations to somewhat, because we don't want to make this project unfeasible. So just kind of knowing that going in.
I think one of the challenges that we have, and we've experienced this many times, is that we trust the person who's taking this, the person and the entity taking this through the rezoning process, but the rezoning doesn't go with that applicant, it goes with the land. And then it makes you nervous for what could happen should they decide to sell it, and it goes with someone else. And my understanding is not mutually exclusive. You can have conditions on your rezoning and also have a development agreement, is that right?
Yes, Ms. Robinson, you can. I do want to point out that because this has started out as a general use rezoning, it cannot convert to a conditional use rezoning. They would have to start their process over again with a new application and a new neighborhood meeting. So at this point in the process, there's not an opportunity for them to introduce conditions without kind of going back a few steps.
Can you explain a little bit more? So we couldn't at this time, if they were to propose a stormwater mitigation for 500-year, they wouldn't be able to do that right now?
No, not without restarting their rezoning process. And it's a provision that we have in the LDO, so it's part of our procedures.
But they could do that with the developer agreement.
Yes.
Does the developer agreement come at the same time as the rezoning?
It doesn't have to, it can. We've done it, the ones that you have seen, we have done separately from the rezoning process, but they can go together.
So I'm a little confused. So if the rezoning goes through and there's not a developer agreement that might then inform someone making a decision on the rezoning, and they sell the property to someone else, the developer agreement goes with the developer. Does that mean all those conditions we had with
The
the
development
developer?
agreement stays with the land.
Oh, it stays with the land,
Yeah,
even
so
though it's called developer? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And can we ensure that they come, sorry for all these questions, can we ensure that they come at the same time?
Well, yes, I mean, that's the way we would do it, because if the development agreement's not approved, the rezoning becomes kind of moot from both
So
perspectives.
you would be bringing us the development agreement in conjunction with the zoning application?
Well, not only that, but you'll hear about the basic tenets of it, even well before that and through the individual briefings, maybe even at a quarterly, depending on how it's going. But we feel really good about what we're going to be able to do with this developer on the site. And the conversations have gone really, really well so far. I mean, this is a developer that we know well, we've worked with, has got a track record, and really has the best interests of Cary and the town's concerns at heart. So, while I'm not worried about these things, the development agreement will spell those things out, right? So there's trust, but there's also verifying, that's why we have the agreement.
Yeah.
But we don't expect that this is going to be, a difficult process as far as trying to enlighten them. Feel like they're fully
Okay.
enlightened.
I have a question for Ms. Redler then. Hey, so I thought you had said that you intended to bring the development agreement in conjunction with like the site development, the land planning. Are you planning on bringing it to us in conjunction with this zoning, like before we vote on the zoning?
It's certainly something we can entertain. Most of the time, when we're thinking about the development, this is a different type of development agreement than, large mixed-use projects. So we're talking about specific, streetscape and stormwater facility upgrades and such. And so we can work towards that goal and take the comments from here and move forward.
Okay. Okay.
When will we see a
Mr.
draft? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Mr. Smith? Nothing?
It's all,
Okay, so you look like you
all
have.
being said.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
When might we see a draft of this developer agreement?
Depends on how many other council priorities come up before then. So, I mean, it's going to be, we need a couple of months at least, 3 or 4 months.
Why don't we take all this into discussion and see what the best vehicle for it is? But it's all helpful regardless. I mean, I would point out that, to Deborah's point, everything that's gone forward in the town center has gone forward as HMXD, not necessarily with a development agreement or not necessarily with a development agreement at the time of zoning. And that's because the town center is different. It's unlike any other district that you have. And it's envisioned for these uses that allow this kind of dense, walkable, mix of amenities. And so the nice thing about the way that the code is written is that all of those provisions I cited at the outset are going to apply because of the LDO. And then if at development plan or earlier, we want to increase some of those commitments, we can. But your code already provides for quite a bit because the site is so constrained, because it's right next to the stream. All the things we're going to be doing and removing an old gas station are automatically going to improve the environmental quality of this. So I don't think that the development agreement is the only way to get those protections. I think your code and the way that this site almost has to develop because of its size and shape will really get to that end. But we'll work hard on taking all these comments into account and getting that draft started and just advance it as fast as we can.
Thank you.
One advantage of the developer agreement, you have one document to look for all the expectations that set forth the relationship between the developer and the town. And so I wish we could do one on every project that has any magnitude, and you will. The reason why we started doing them a couple years ago is you're going to see in redevelopment areas, especially downtown, there'll be more and more of these coming forward. But at least you don't have to look at several different places to kind of understand what the expectations and standards are.
Right, I think we love the agreements. I just think that the timing of them is important to us, so that we don't feel like we end up stepping in it and making a mistake for future.
Well, that's why I said we'll bring them at the same time.
Yeah, thank you.
I understand.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, I'm trying to look at this, through the lenses of the whole downtown and how we've treated everybody throughout, rezoning process and approvals and such. And, to me, I'm still looking at it as MXD, HMXD. We're basically the main difference is 20 feet in height. And I think a lot of that is because, one, we want to hide a deck and we want to do some pretty remarkable things with architecture. So I appreciate the concerns. I appreciate the wants. I appreciate the assurances, or wanting assurances. I really do. I do believe those things can be worked out in a developer agreement. But if at the same time, I don't know how this works into their timeline or what they need to accomplish, but I don't see why they can't come at the same time. But at the same time, I want to keep our expectations fair and reasonable and such, because to me, at the end of the day, it's 20 feet different in height ask is the primary change. So with that, we will send this on to Planning and Zoning. Ms. Grannon, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I think, yep. Our second public hearing is on the FY 2023 Community Development Block Grant Agreement Annual Action Plan Funding Recommendation. Intergovernmental Affairs Liaison Morgan Manza will present the item, and then council may take action. Ms. Manza.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. Tonight's meeting is the final step in approving the Community Development Block Grant's fiscal year 2023 Annual Action Plan. Last November, staff launched our community engagement process for this plan. In meeting with residents and local stakeholders, public input has focused on more funding for the production and preservation of affordable housing, more housing options near public transportation, homelessness prevention to help people without stable housing, and job training focused on technology and healthcare. Please note that in addition to CDBG funding, to show Cary's commitment to housing and community development, this plan not only details the activities funded by CDBG, but also includes funding activities supported through Cary general funds and the mid-year appropriation of $1 million of American Rescue Plan Act funds. This is also the first CDBG annual action plan since the adoption of the Cary Housing Plan. The increased funding in the housing category reflects Cary's reaffirmed commitment to providing diverse housing options to our residents. The second largest pool is public services, which supports local nonprofits to provide resources for seniors and families with limited means. That pool is followed by economic development through activities such as the Facade Improvement Program, The smallest pool of funds will be used for planning and the administration of the program. Focusing specifically on CDBG, this year we received applications from 6 organizations with funding requests that fit within this year's CDBG grant award. Through these investments, the town will be able to keep 20 families in their homes, provide in-home health care to just over 100 households, serve 500 Cary residents through supportive services, and notably provide 81 new units of affordable housing for senior residents in Cary. Tonight, we are asking that council approve the proposed list of funded projects, adopt the CDBG annual action plan, and authorize staff to submit this to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. The community engagement process launched last November, providing multiple opportunities for the public to meet with staff and share their comments. We are providing one final opportunity for the public to participate tonight. This concludes staff's presentation. After the public hearing, staff will be available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Manza. At this point, I will open the public hearing and call on the clerk to see, did we have any call-in comments?
No call-in speakers nor registered speakers.
Okay, thank you. I would invite the first speaker here to approach the podium. I will close the public hearing. And I will open it up to council members for any questions or comments.
I don't have any.
I would just like to make a comment that staff does an excellent job, and I think we are really lucky to have someone like Morgan and Dana working to look out for so many of the folks that struggle with housing. It's an incredibly powerful and difficult thing, and the amount of money that we put forward as a council, as well as the money we get from the federal government, you guys are putting it to great use. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Well said. Anybody else?
Echo.
Yeah, echo.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the CDBG annual action plan.
I'll second. Sorry.
Second and a third. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
All right. The last discussion items were removed from the agenda, so I will move to item number 7 in closed session and call on Ms. Bush for a motion.
Pursuant to GS 143-318, 11A, 1 and 3, I move that we hold a closed session to consult with attorneys employed by and/or retained by the town in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorneys and the town, and to prevent the disclosure of information that is made privileged or confidential pursuant to the laws of the state or not considered a public record within the meaning of Chapter 132 of the general statutes.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are now in closed session. Having no further business before us, this meeting is adjourned.